He didn't see her at first. He only saw the sudden shape on the road and hit the brakes hard enough for his truck to jolt forward. When the dust settled, he saw a woman dragging herself across the asphalt, her arms shaking, her legs limp behind her as if they had forgotten they belonged to her. Help! The word barely left her mouth, just a broken breath. Her fingers clawed at the ground, then reached for him as if he was the last person left in the world. He ran to her without thinking. The moment he touched her shoulder, she flinched in terror, gripping his shirt with a strength she shouldn't have had. She tried to lift herself, but nothing below her waist moved. "It's okay," he whispered, even though nothing felt okay. Her breath hitched, her fear wrapped around him like a plea. He lifted her into his arms, changing both their lives forever. Daniel Morgan lived his life in quiet patterns. Wake up before sunrise, make breakfast for his 7-year-old daughter Lily, drop her at school, work a long shift at the hardware store, pick her up, help with homework, cook dinner, read her a bedtime story, then sit alone at the small kitchen table staring at the empty chair across from him. That routine kept him steady, safe, predictable, and for a man who lost too much too fast, predictability felt like the only thing he could control. Lily would sometimes ask him, "Dad, are you happy?" He always gave the same gentle lie. "Of course, sweetheart." He wasn't unhappy, just tired. Tired in the kind of way that stays in the bones. Tired in the way that comes from carrying guilt for years. His wife Emma died 3 years earlier. A sudden medical emergency. One he never stopped replaying. Every second of it lived inside him like a scar that refused to fade. He wasn't fast enough. He didn't call early enough. He didn't understand the signs. He failed her, at least. That's what his heart kept telling him, even when people tried to say otherwise. Since then, Daniel guarded everything he loved with a quiet fear he never admitted. He double-checked the locks every night, walked Lily to her classroom door even when she told him she was old enough. He avoided risks, avoided new people, avoided anything that could break the little world he had left. But beneath that cautious shell was a man who still believed in doing the right thing, even if it scared him. A man who would stop his truck in the middle of the night because someone needed help. A man who acted on instinct, not fear, when he found the injured woman on the road. And though he didn't know it yet, that choice would pull him out of the quiet life he tried so hard to keep together. It had been raining hard that night, the kind of rain that made the world feel smaller, quieter, almost trapped inside itself. Daniel was driving home after a late shift, the wipers struggling to keep up, when he saw something strange on the side of the road. At first it looked like trash blown out of a bin. Then the shape moved. His heart jumped. He pulled over, stepped out, and felt the cold, wet wind rush against him. A few feet ahead, half hidden in a muddy ditch, lay a woman. Her clothes were ripped, her skin was bruised. She wasn't unconscious, but she wasn't fully awake either. She blinked at him like she wasn't sure he was real. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" he asked. Her lip trembled. "Help, please." The words broke apart as if her mouth had forgotten how to form them. He knelt beside her and realized she wasn't just hurt. She had been attacked. Someone had put her here. Someone had left her to die. Fear crawled up the back of his neck. This wasn't the kind of situation a single father wanted to be in, alone in the dark. But walking away wasn't something he could do. Not anymore. Not since losing Emma. Not since promising himself he would never fail to act again. "I'm going to pick you up," he said softly. "Stay with me." Her body was cold, limp, far lighter than it should have been. He carried her to the truck, feeling her shake against him. Every few seconds she tried to speak, but the words dissolved into breath. At the small clinic on the edge of town, the nurses rushed her inside. The place looked tired, understaffed, and overwhelmed. They asked Daniel questions he didn't know how to answer. Did she have allergies? Did she say anything? Did he see anyone else? "No," he kept saying. "I found her like that." Hours passed. He filled out forms with shaking hands. He waited in a plastic chair that creaked every time he breathed. He couldn't bring himself to leave. Every time a nurse walked by, he stood up, hoping for news. Near midnight, 2 officials arrived, men in plain dark clothing, not police, but not casual either. They asked him to describe everything again, slower this time, more carefully. They exchanged looks he couldn't read. "Do you know her name?" one asked. "No." "Did she say anything else?" "No." "Did you see a vehicle nearby?" "No." Their faces tightened, as if his answers made things worse, not better. When they finally left him alone, the storm outside had eased. Inside him it hadn't. By dawn, the clinic told him she was stable enough to rest, but not stable enough for questions. Daniel stepped outside, feeling as tired as the sky above him. He drove home in silence, his clothes still damp, his mind stuck on the image of her reaching up through the rain begging for a chance to live. He had no idea how deeply that moment would follow him. Daniel went back to the clinic the next morning before work. He hadn't slept much. A part of him needed to know if she made it through the night. When he walked into her room, she was finally awake, sitting upright, her back stiff against the pillows. Her eyes were sharp now, alert, cautious, and full of walls. She stared at him as if he were a problem she had to solve. "You're the man who found me," she said. Her voice was stronger than before, but guarded. "Yes," he answered. "Just wanted to check if you're okay." Her expression tightened. "Why?" The question hit him harder than he expected. "Because you were hurt," he said slowly. "Anyone would have helped." "That's not true." Her gaze didn't soften. "People don't stop for strangers without a reason." Daniel felt something twist in his chest. "I don't want anything from you." She let out a dry, bitter laugh. "Everyone wants something." He took a breath. "Not me." The silence between them grew heavy. She watched him like she didn't believe a single word he said. It made something in him pull back. He wasn't used to being looked at like that, like a threat, like a liar. "If you saved my life," she said quietly, "tell me what you expect in return." "I expect you to get better," he replied. "That's it." Her eyes flinched, almost invisible, but she covered it fast. "You don't even know who I am." "I don't need to," he said. But his simple answer only seemed to push her further away, as if kindness confused her more than cruelty ever could. Without another word, she swung her legs off the bed, ignoring her pain, ignoring his concern. "I don't need your help anymore," she said. She walked past him, as cold and distant as a stranger on a street. And for the first time since finding her, Daniel wondered if helping her had been a mistake. Daniel tried to shake off the strange tension from the morning, but her coldness stayed with him long after he left the clinic. He went to work, hoping routine would help him forget the sting of her suspicion. By noon, he stepped into the break room for a quick lunch, turning on the small TV mounted in the corner. A news anchor's voice filled the room. "Breaking update on the disappearance of Alina Hart, daughter of billionaire industrialist Victor Hart." Daniel froze. On the screen appeared a clean, sharp photo of the woman he had carried out of the rain. Hair styled, makeup perfect, strong eyes, nothing like the bruised, frightened stranger he found in the ditch. Last seen 2 nights ago, leaving a charity event. Authorities believe foul play may be involved. His stomach dropped. Alina Hart. He had heard the name before. Everyone had. Her family owned half the factories in the county. Her face appeared in magazines, business articles, charity fundraisers, and she had been lying on the side of the road in front of him. Daniel's mind raced. She wasn't just a stranger. She wasn't someone he could quietly help and walk away from. This was the kind of person who lived in a world shielded by lawyers, security teams, and money so big it bent rules. A woman like that getting hurt, someone would need answers. Real answers. And he had none. Fear settled heavy in his chest. He realized the woman he saved wasn't just out of reach. She was part of a world that could crush a man like him without even noticing. 2 days passed. Daniel tried to keep his mind on work, but the news replayed in his thoughts like a whisper he couldn't shut off. Every mention of her name tightened something in his chest. Every update made him wonder what danger she had escaped, and what danger he might have stepped into without realizing. By the 3rd afternoon, he was outside the hardware store carrying a stack of lumber to a customer's truck, when a sleek black SUV pulled into the lot. It didn't belong there. Nothing that polished ever showed up in his world. The door opened, and Alina Hart stepped out. Daniel nearly dropped the boards. People around him stared. Some whispered. Others froze, wide-eyed, because they knew who she was. Everyone knew. But no one expected to see her here, in a dusty parking lot, looking straight at a man like him. Her posture was steadier now, but her face held something new, something softer, almost unsure. "Daniel Morgan?" she said. He swallowed. Yes. I need a moment with you." Her voice wasn't cold this time. It wasn't sharp or guarded. It carried a quiet urgency that unsettled him. His coworkers watched from a distance, pretending not to stare. Daniel wiped his hands on his jeans. "All right. We can talk over here." They walked to the side of the building, away from the curious eyes. She stood there for a second, gripping her own wrist, like she needed the anchor. "I came to thank you," she said finally, "for saving my life." Daniel blinked. He didn't expect that. "You don't need to." "Yes, I do." Her voice broke for a moment, surprising both of them. I was out of my mind that morning. I thought you were like everyone else. Someone who wanted something, someone I had to protect myself from. He hesitated. It's fine. No, it's not. She looked away, embarrassed. I judged you before I even understood what you had done. And that was wrong. Daniel wasn't sure what to say. A part of him still felt the sting from their first meeting, but seeing her now, tired, vulnerable, stripped of the arrogance the world expected from her, made that sting soften. I didn't help you for a reason, he said. She nodded slowly. I know, that's why I'm here. They stood there in awkward silence, two people from opposite sides of life trying to bridge a gap neither had asked for. I'm still figuring out what happened to me, she admitted. There are pieces I don't remember, and pieces I wish I didn't. Her eyes met his. But that only clear memory I have from that night is your voice telling me it was going to be okay. Daniel felt something shift inside him, something gentle, unexpected. Anyone would have. No, she whispered. Not anyone. For the first time they looked at each other without suspicion or fear. Just two humans standing in the same storm, trying to understand the pieces of their crossed lives. The next week changed the rhythm of Daniel's life in ways he didn't expect. After their talk behind the hardware store, Alina began reaching out, not as a powerful heiress, but as someone trying to piece together a memory that frightened her. She called him once to ask about the exact spot he found her. Another time to ask if he remembered any detail she might have said. Each conversation was short, awkward, but strangely natural, and soon helping her figure out the missing pieces didn't feel like an obligation. It felt like something he wanted to do. One afternoon she came by to meet him at his home. She wanted to revisit the area near the ditch, see if it triggered anything familiar. Daniel hesitated. Letting someone from her world step into his simple house felt exposed, but she stood on his porch in a light coat, nervous, hugging her arms like she wasn't sure she should be there. Is this a bad time? She asked softly. Before he could answer, Lily peeked from behind his leg, her big brown eyes curious. Hi, are you Daddy's friend? Talina froze, caught off guard. I guess I am. Lily smiled like that answer was enough. Do you want to see my drawings? I made one of a unicorn. Daniel tried to stop her, but Alina knelt down slowly, her knees shaky from healing bones. I'd love to, she said. Something in her softened, almost melting at the edges, as Lily proudly showed her colorful scribbles. For the first time, Daniel saw a gentleness in Alina that her guarded exterior had hidden. She wasn't the cold, unreachable figure from the news. She was human, wounded, searching, and maybe lonelier than she let on. Their days slowly intertwined. They revisited the roadside together, walking the muddy ground where Daniel had carried her. She held her breath as memories flickered. Footsteps behind her, a sharp pain, a voice she couldn't place. Daniel stood beside her quietly, a steady presence she didn't have to fear. They talked more, about her work, about his daughter, about the weight she carried as someone always expected to be strong, polished, perfect. Daniel shared pieces of himself, too, small pieces, careful pieces, but she listened without judgment. Sometimes they laughed. Lily would say something silly, and Alina's laughter came unexpectedly, almost like a sound she hadn't made in years. Other times, they argued lightly about tiny things, her stubbornness, his overprotective habits, but even those moments felt strange in a good way, like small sparks of something neither wanted to name yet. One evening, while Lily colored at the kitchen table, Daniel brewed tea and handed Alina a cup. Their hands brushed for a second. Small, accidental, but both felt the warmth linger longer than it should have. I feel safer around you, she whispered, surprising herself. Daniel swallowed. I'm glad. She looked at him then, really looked. Not as a stranger, not as a rescuer, but as someone she trusted. For the first time since the night he found her, the space between them felt steady, warm, safe. Trust is fragile, and the moment it starts to form, life has a way of testing it. It happened on a Thursday afternoon. Daniel returned home from work to find a luxury car parked across the street. Two men in suits stood by it, scanning the neighborhood. He didn't recognize them, but he knew the type: men who belonged to Alina's world, men who didn't come without purpose. When he walked inside, Lily rushed up to him. Daddy. Some men came. They asked questions. His stomach sank. What kind of questions? They wanted to know if Miss Alina comes here a lot, and if you talk about her. A cold shock ran through him. He didn't know those men, but they knew him, and they had spoken to his daughter. He barely had time to process before his phone buzzed. It was Alina. Her voice trembled from the first word. Why did you give out details about me? What? I didn't tell anyone anything. They already knew everything. My visits, our conversations, the roadside search, all of it. Her breathing was fast, panicked. Someone fed them information, Daniel. Someone close. You think it was me? The question scraped his throat. You're the only person I've been meeting alone, she whispered. How else would they know? The accusation sliced deeper than he expected. Because someone is watching you, he said firmly. Because someone hurt you. Not because of me. Silence. Then a shakier, colder voice. I can't risk being wrong again. He felt something collapse inside him. Alina, don't do this. But she was slipping away, retreating behind the same walls she had let him see behind for only a moment. I trusted someone once, she said, almost crying. It nearly got me killed. Alina? I'm sorry, she whispered. But I can't come back there. Not anymore. The line went dead. Daniel stood in his living room, phone still in hand, heart pounding as if someone had punched through his ribs. Lily watched him with worried eyes, but he forced a small smile for her sake. Inside, he was breaking. He had been foolish, he thought. Foolish to believe someone like her could ever see him as anything other than a danger, an inconvenience, or a mistake waiting to happen. Her world had bodyguards, lawyers, and security protocols. His world had a small house, a tired job, and a 7-year-old who trusted him completely. He hated how quickly doubt could erase days of connection. He hated how easily hope could be replaced by shame. That night, after Lily fell asleep, Daniel sat on the edge of his bed with his head in his hands. He replayed every moment they shared, every laugh, every quiet conversation, and wondered how something that felt so real could vanish so easily. Across town, Alina sat alone in her enormous, silent apartment, staring at her phone as guilt and fear fought inside her. Two people in different worlds, both hurting, both thinking they had been foolish to open their hearts at all, both terrified of the same thing. What if trust was the one thing they weren't meant to have? 2 days passed in silence. Daniel tried to keep himself busy, but every task felt heavier. He told himself it was for the best. She belonged somewhere safer, somewhere with alarms and guards and people who understood her world. Not here, not with him. But the ache didn't listen to reason. On the third morning, a knock sounded at his door. Sharp, fast, urgent. Daniel opened it to find Officer Ramos, someone he'd known casually for years. A man who never looked nervous. Today Daniel, we need to talk, he said, lowering his voice. It's about that woman you helped. Daniel's stomach tightened. What about her? Ramos stepped inside. Those men who questioned your daughter, they weren't with law enforcement. They were hired by the same person who attacked her. Daniel felt the world tilt. What? We've been tracking the case. A witness came forward last night. Someone saw a black sedan following her car before the attack. They also saw 2 men watching the clinic when you brought her in. Those men were at your house. Daniel's breath caught. So they weren't here because of me. No, Ramos said. They were trying to find her, and you being involved made you a loose end. A shaky exhale left him, part relief, part rising fear. But before he could answer, another knock sounded. This time, it was her. Alina stood on the porch. No guards, no walls, just a woman whose eyes were full of regret. She looked at Ramos, then at Daniel, then lowered her gaze. Daniel, I need to talk to you. Ramos gave Daniel a nod and stepped outside to give them space. Alina's voice cracked before she even began. I was wrong about everything. Daniel crossed his arms without meaning to. It was all he had left to hold himself together. You said you couldn't risk being wrong again. I know. Her eyes glistened. And I hurt you because of it. But I have to explain. She held out a small folder, shaking. My security team found evidence. Messages, payments. A list of people the attackers were watching. Your address was on it. Daniel stiffened. They were following you, she whispered. Not because you did anything wrong, but because you saved me. Her breath trembled, and she pushed on. I thought you betrayed me, but you were the only person they feared. The only one who got in their way. Silence stretched between them, slow, delicate, healing. And there's something else, she added softly. When I accused you, I wasn't judging your worth. I was remembering the last time I trusted someone. He pretended to protect me. He pretended to care. And he was the one who delivered me to the people who hurt me. Daniel's anger softened instantly. She wrapped her arms around herself. I wasn't pushing you away because you weren't enough. I pushed you away because I'm afraid of everyone now. He stepped closer, just enough that she could feel his steadiness. You don't have to be afraid of me. Her eyes lifted, full of a fragile hope she was scared to name. I know, she whispered. And for the first time since the night he found her, they moved toward each other instead of away, two people choosing unity over fear, even if the path ahead was still uncertain. It was the first real step toward fighting whatever came next. Together. The town hall had never seen so many news vans. The parking lot overflowed with reporters, cameras, and people hungry for answers about the attack on Alina Hart, the billionaire heiress who had vanished for 2 days and reappeared in a clinic with injuries she couldn't explain. But today wasn't about her wealth. Today was about truth. Daniel stood near the back of the crowded hall, uncomfortable in his cleanest shirt. He didn't want to be there, but Officer Ramos insisted. Your name's coming up in the investigation. People need to hear the truth, he said. Daniel felt out of place, like a man who wandered into someone else's world by accident. Then Alina entered. Heads turned, reporters surged forward, murmurs spread through the room like wind. She walked slowly but confidently, a bruise still faintly visible near her hairline. She carried herself not like an heiress, but like a survivor. She searched the room, and when she found Daniel, her shoulders dropped with quiet relief. The district attorney stepped up to the mic, explaining the charges, the evidence recovered, the arrests made overnight. 2 men had been taken into custody. A third, the mastermind, was still being pursued. Then the attorney gestured toward Alina. Ms. Hart would like to give a statement. Alina walked up to the podium, exhaling shakily before facing the crowd. Her eyes flicked briefly to Daniel as if she needed the courage he silently offered. I was attacked by someone I trusted, she began, voice steady. Someone who thought they could control me. Someone who believed no one would come to my aid. The room fell silent. They left me on the side of the road. They believed no one would see me. No one would care. She paused, but they were wrong. She lifted her chin, her voice gaining strength. A man stopped, a single father on his way home from work. A man who didn't know my name or my family. A man who had no reason to risk anything, but did anyway. People turned to look at Daniel. He felt heat rise in his face. Daniel Morgan saved my life, she said, without hesitation, without asking for anything. And when I doubted him, he still protected me. Gasps rippled across the room. She continued, softer now. I judged him unfairly. I assumed his kindness came with motives. It didn't. He acted out of goodness, not greed. Out of decency, not fear. He showed the courage that the people around me, people with resources, power, and influence, never did. The words landed like a spotlight with no glare, just truth. The district attorney invited Daniel to join her at the front, and he froze. He didn't want attention. He didn't want applause, but Alina held out her hand. Please, she said quietly. He walked forward, heart hammering, feeling every eye in the room. When he reached her, she breathed out a small, grateful sigh. The attorney turned to him. Mr. Morgan, do you have anything to say? Daniel shook his head at first. Then he looked at Alina. Her strength, her vulnerability, her honesty, and something inside him opened. I'm not a hero, he said softly. I just saw someone who needed help. A woman in the front row wiped her tears. Someone else nodded slowly. Daniel continued. If doing the right thing makes me stand up here, then I guess I'm proud I did it. The room erupted into applause. Not loud, not chaotic, just warm, genuine. Justice was unfolding in real time. Names cleared, lies exposed, dignity returned. Alina turned to him, her eyes shining. Thank you, she whispered. This time, he believed her completely, and in that moment, surrounded by strangers, pressure, and truth, they saw each other as they truly were. Not a billionaire heiress and a single father, not a victim and a rescuer, just 2 hearts that survived the same storm. Together. Life didn't change overnight, but it changed in ways Daniel felt deep in his bones. After the public statement, the noise around the case slowly faded, replaced by quiet days with steadier breaths. Alina began visiting more often, not with urgency or fear, but with calm steps and a gentle smile he had never seen before. She no longer hid behind coldness or control. Her walls lowered a little each time she walked through his door. Daniel noticed the change in himself too. For years, guilt wrapped around him like a chain he couldn't break. But helping her, standing by her, protecting her, being believed, pulled something loose inside him. It reminded him he was capable, trustworthy, stronger than he gave himself credit for. The voice that haunted him after losing Emma grew softer, less cruel, less certain he was to blame for everything he couldn't control. He was healing without even realizing it. Lily became the quiet bridge between their worlds. She would hold Alina's hand without hesitation, show her drawings, insist she stay for dinner, and talk about unicorns until they all laughed. Alina softened with her every smile, a piece of her heart returning, every gentle word, another wound closing. One afternoon, as Lily napped on the couch beside them, Alina whispered, "I didn't know safety could feel like this." Daniel looked at her, seeing not the heiress, not the survivor, but the woman she was underneath it all. "You're safe here," he said. "With us." Her eyes warmed with something fragile and hopeful. "And you're safe with me." They both knew the road ahead wouldn't be perfect. Healing never was. But they had stepped into a new normal, steady, warm and real. A place where trust could grow. A place where hearts could rest. Months later, the world around them looked the same, but nothing inside their small home felt the way it used to. There were no headlines, no reporters, no dark shadows waiting around the corner. Just simple evenings filled with quiet laughter and the feeling of belonging. Alina sat on the porch one warm afternoon, watching Lily draw chalk hearts on the sidewalk. Daniel handed her a cup of tea and sat beside her, their shoulders brushing in an easy, familiar way. "Funny," she said with a soft smile. "One night changed everything." Daniel nodded. "I still think about it. What would have happened if I drove by 2 minutes earlier, or 2 minutes later?" She looked at him, gentle and grateful. "Then we might never have found each other." Lily ran toward them, waving her newest drawing, a picture of 3 people holding hands. Alina held the drawing carefully, almost reverently. "Feels like a new beginning," she whispered. Daniel smiled. "It is. And now, to everyone listening, tell us where you're watching from, and the moment in this story that hit you the hardest.